Argentina's Chamber of Deputies suspended until this Thursday the session debating the controversial Omnibus Bill due to lack of agreement. Outside the Congress, a strong security operation repressed demonstrators. In Palestine, the Ministry of Health warned that the number of miscarriages increased by 300% due to the launching of chemical weapons by Israel. And in Belgium, farmers blocked the seat of the European Parliament with tractors in protest against the fall of income in the sectors and the regulations imposed by the community bloc. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos and from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. Argentina's Chamber of Deputies suspended until this Thursday the session debating the controversial Omnibus Bill due to lack of agreement. Outside the Congress, a strong security operation repressed demonstrators. After several hours of presentations, the parliament passed to a fourth intermission until this Thursday at noon amid complaints about the lack of presentation of a complete text of the bill currently under discussion. During the day, the legislators opened the discussion of the majority opinion, which has its main axis the declaration of public emergency in 6 areas, a broad reform of the state, and the total privatization of 36 public companies, and other 3 in the partial form. In this context, after hours of protest without incident in the square of the Congress in rejection of the Omnibus Bill being debated in the Chamber of Deputies, the police advanced against the demonstrators and generated moments of tension. On Wednesday in Peru, residents of Machu Picchu agreed to suspend protests after the government reversed the privatization of ticket sales to the site recognized by the UNESCO as a World Cultural Heritage. In this sense, the Peruvian Ministry of Culture, through the social network X, thanks a dialogue held between the government and local authorities in Cusco, which led to the agreements in defense of national heritage and economic reactivation. In the same context, the Minister of Culture, Leslie Urteaga, clarified that the sale of the tickets will be managed by a new digital platform and emphasized that there will not be any type of privatization. At the same time, during the assembly held with the inhabitants of Machu Picchu district, it was unanimously decided to end the strike that began 6 days ago. The Supreme Court of Justice of Venezuela on Wednesday started the cycle of judicial activities corresponding to the year 2024 with a presentation of its annual report in an event attended by President Nicolás Maduro. In this context, the president of the highest Venezuelan court, Cariclia Rodriguez, opened the judicial period with a summary of the functions and competences carried out in 2023. In the meantime, the representative of the first court expressed that the decisions taken by the court correspond to the legitimacy of its constitutional functions and also reaffirmed, together with the rest of the magistrates, the commitment to enforce social justice, the responsibility with equal human rights, and the peace of the country. In this context, the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, in his speech at the session, highlighted the work of the Supreme Court of Justice and its magistrates in the fulfillment of their duties and the Constitution.
Truly, never before has Venezuela had such a high court of justice, with such moral people, so prepared, so professional, with the best of Venezuelan intellectuals as Professor Luis Damiani, who is a guarantee of justice, a guarantee of transparency, morality, and honesty. We have 5 powers, and each power must demand of itself to take the principles of the Constitution to the maximum. Each power must assume the great task.
Cuba extends an update on the fuel prices in dollars after a computer attack on its marketing system. This decision is due to a cybersecurity attack on the marketing system of the company Cemex. Authorities indicated that the incident was caused by a virus from abroad, with the purpose of postponing the measure to update the price and sale of fuel in foreign currency, which was planned to be applied on February 1st. In this context, officials will continue with the investigations while they emphasize that the logistic conditions and the sale of fuel are maintained at the levels which they were carried out.
The government's projection to correct distortion and to redrive the economy through 2024 will only be implemented if the conditions for this are created. Defending this principle, the decision has been taken to postpone the implementation of a government projection related to the updating of fuel prices and their commercialization in a select network of service centers to be sold in a foreign currency. This decision is influenced by the occurrence of a cybersecurity incident in the computer system for the commercialization of fuels, whose origin has been identified in a virus from abroad, in the causes of which we are carrying out an investigation.
In Haiti, thousands of residents have fled their homes in a neighborhood in the capital, Port-au-Prince, amid a heavy gun battle between paramilitary groups. On Wednesday, residents were seen leaving Pernier, bound for makeshift shelters, which included at least one school. The territorial fight between the paramilitary forces in the neighborhood started on Monday. At one makeshift shelter at a school, some residents were delivering food and other supplies to the displaced people. These groups control an estimated of 80% of Haiti's capital. The number of people reported killed last year in Haiti more than doubled to nearly 4,500, and the number of reported kidnappings surged by more than 80% to nearly 2,500 cases, according to the most recent UN statistics. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Palestine on Thursday, the Ministry of Health warned that the number of miscarriages increased by 300% due to the launching of chemical weapons by Israel. In this way, the medical staff warned about irregularities in the general public health situation and during the gestation process that may have their origin in chemical affectations caused by the use of weapons used by the armed forces of the Israeli occupation. In this regard, authorities denounced that since October 7th, the Tel Aviv regime used weapons prohibited by international law, such as white phosphor bombs, smoke bombs, lightning bombs, and other rockets and missiles launched. In addition, the Ministry of Health pointed out that as a result of the insistent bombardments perpetrated by the Zionist entity, pregnant women are exposed to many hours of walking in order to be able to move to safer places. And more than 50% of the houses in Gaza have been destroyed by the Israeli siege. Palestinians now worry about how to survive and yearn to return to their homes, even if they are in the rubble. Our correspondent in Gaza, Nur Harasin, tells us more.
More than 50% of Gaza's buildings are now destroyed. It is impossible to walk in the streets of Gaza now and not find a destroyed home, if not completely, at least partly damaged. We are also talking about most of Gaza's infrastructure being completely destroyed. People here on the ground are talking about a new war, a war of survival when they go back to their homes, as most of the homes were destroyed. Talking about me personally, I lost my own home, and this means that if I manage to go back to northern Gaza, I have no place to stay. I will have to have my own tent on the rubble of my destroyed home, and this is the thing that even most of the displaced people are wanting. They want to go back to northern Gaza, even if they will live inside tents. Adding to this the fact that there is no infrastructure in Gaza, especially in northern Gaza. Most of the water pipeline were destroyed, most of the electricity lines were destroyed, most of the network stations and lines were also destroyed. So we're talking about months, if not years, of rebuilding and reconstructing the Gaza Strip. However, as I said before, Palestinians, displaced Palestinians, prefer to go back and live in northern Gaza on their destroyed homes than being displaced in another place in Gaza. Noor Harazin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
In Palestine, authorities accuse Israel of executing some 30 civilians after the bodies were recovered blindfolded and tied up inside a schoolyard in Beit Lahiya in northern Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that the bodies were found in a high level of decomposition and indicated that the way in which the victims were found is a clear proof that they were executed on the location. The Palestinian Resistance Movement called on human rights organizations to document the crime of the execution organized by the Tel Aviv regime in Palestinian territory. For its part, the Palestinian Prisoners Society indicated that the Israeli occupation forces have been intensifying their on-the-ground executions and kidnappings of Palestinians as the Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip reaches 118 days. In Palestine, at least 9 civilians, including a child, were killed and several others injured over the last hours due to Israeli aerial and artillery strikes targeting residential areas across the Gaza Strip. According to local sources, Israeli warplanes carried out an airstrike on the residents of the Maghrebi neighborhood southeast of Gaza City, resulting in the killing of 2 individuals and the injury of others. Simultaneously, ongoing artillery shelling on the city of Beit Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip led to the killing of 3 civilians and left dozens more injured. The wounded were promptly transported to the Kamal Adwan hospital for medical treatment. In a separate incident, Israeli forces also targeted a vehicle north of the city of Rafah, south of the enclave, resulting in the tragic death of 4 civilians, including a child, and injuring others. Senior UN officials call on Western governments, including the United States, Canada, and the Netherlands, not to suspend funding for the United Nations Refugee Agency for Palestinians. In a written statement, the director of the Palestinian Refugee Agency, Filippi Lazzarini, and the head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom, warned that stopping funding to UNRWA could have catastrophic consequences for the Gaza Strip. UNRWA is the main provider of humanitarian assistance to Gaza and 2.2 million citizens. In this context, last Friday, January 26th, Israel accused the organization of working in collaboration with the Palestinian Resistance Movement, Hamas. It demanded the entity to be replaced by other UN agencies and that its funding would be suspended. Norway, for its part, said it would maintain its financial support to UNRWA. The Israeli occupation entity announced its intention to terminate the presence of the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, in the Gaza Strip, an action by which, according to the Palestinians, the Zionist regime is attempting to take revenge on the UN following the ruling of the International Court of Justice, requiring it to take all measures within its power to prevent acts of genocide in Gaza. Let's see.
The Palestinians and their allies of the Axis of Resistance denounce that the Israeli troops, in a blatant violation of the ruling of the International Court of Justice, do not stop bombing Gaza. They condemn that no place in this Palestinian coastal enclave is safe amidst the continuous attacks of the Zionist forces that, in defiance of the world will, refuse to stop their genocidal action against the Palestinian people.
The history of the Zionist occupation entity demonstrates that this entity never respected international legality and never complied with the resolutions of the different international organizations, so that now it will not respect the ruling of the International Court of Justice either, which, even though we do not expect it to be binding to stop the Israeli aggression, we believe it serves to expose the hostile and aggressive nature of the Israeli occupation in its blatant violation of international legality.
The UN highest judicial body also demanded that humanitarian aid be allowed into Gaza, but the Israeli occupation entity, in addition to maintaining its tight siege on the Strip, bombed UNRWA aid warehouses and prompted 11 donor countries, led by the United States, to suspend their funding to the agency due to the alleged unsubstantiated allegations of support for the Palestinian resistance.
This decision represents the other phase of this current savage aggression of the Israeli occupation and is a continuation of the criminal tools of this aggression aimed at exterminating our Palestinian people in Gaza. And therefore we condemn the action of these governments and demand to continue the funding of this agency that should keep its work to support the Palestinian people as long as our homeland, Palestine, remains under occupation.
Meanwhile, more than 85% of the 2.3 million Gazans have become internally displaced persons living as refugees in appalling humanitarian conditions in the south of the Strip. People who, with the incessant bombardment, siege, and the Israeli incitement against UNRWA, are at risk of genocide and planned starvation. Just days after the International Court of Justice concluded in its ruling that the survival of the Palestinian population in Gaza is in danger.
Palestina en Gaza está en peligro. Hisham News, TeleSUR, Oriente Medio.
Now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Belgium, farmers blockade with tractors the seat of the European Parliament in protest against the fall of income in the sector and the regulations imposed by the bloc. Farmers lit bonfires and parked their tractors in front of the site to protest as an extraordinary summit of the European Council took place. The main topic of the meeting of the EU bloc leaders is a deal on the financial aid package for Ukraine, and no discussion of the problems of European farmers is planned. For their part, the farmers are demanding a change in the pan-European agricultural policy, the lifting of numerous restrictions, including environmental ones, and an end to the uncontrolled import of cheap foreign products. Meanwhile, in France, the agricultural sector also continues protests for the second week in a row. On Wednesday night, a group of farmers blocked the A6 highway near Paris, demanding better conditions for the sector. During the day, police arrested 91 protesters after they tried to break into the Rungis food market, the largest in Europe, located near the French capital. In addition to moving on Paris, convoys were also attempting to encircle Lyon, France's third biggest city. Farmers' complaints range from rising costs to meeting carbon-cutting targets, fuel prices, inflation, bureaucracy, and Ukrainian grain imports. On Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin revealed that the Russian military plane Il-76 that crashed last week in the province of Belgorod with 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war on board was shot down by a U.S. Patriot system. The president recalled that the Ukrainian authorities demanded an international investigation of what happened. However, he stressed that no international organizations are interested in doing so. Nevertheless, Putin reiterated his call for international experts to arrive, carry out an analysis and evaluate the material evidence. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, Russia and Ukraine exchanged 195 prisoners from each side, 1 week after the downing of the plane with the Ukrainian prisoners. Also, Russia, as the temporary president of the BRICS bloc, will pay special attention to the new members, Foreign Ministry Sergei Lavrov said on Wednesday. The head of the Russian diplomacy stressed that the group will shape the global agenda, defend the interests of the world majority, and offer a vision of the contours of the future of global order. Lavrov pointed out that the dollar as a weapon already active or potential is used by the West to solve political tasks. According to the Russian foreign minister, unilateral sanctions undermine established supply chains and undermine their development prospects, mainly in the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The BRICS group accounts for 30% of the world's land area and 45% of the world's population, a significant global production of oil and other resources, as well as about a quarter of the world's merchandise exports. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.